of the set pieces of President Zelensky's visit was a private meeting with members of the Senate. Republican Senator Kevin Cramer was there. I spoke with him a little earlier. Senator Cramer, having listened to President Zelensky today, did he persuade you that the US should continue funding the support, giving that support to Ukraine?
Well, first of all, I think President Zelensky did an excellent job of making his case. I don't know that there's a lot of new information necessarily, but he did do an excellent job of outlining not only why it's important that the United States support Ukraine, in other words, why it's in our interest to support Ukraine, which we can certainly elaborate on. But he did it all in English, by the way, and that's a little bit unusual, but I think it was very effective. But I think more importantly, he did a good job of answering senators' questions about, what the game plan is, how can you be successful, and what would happen if you didn't get the assistance from the United States. What about Europe and NATO? Are they pulling their weight with regard to, munitions and weapon systems, military aid specifically? And I think where he provided a comfort level for a lot of us is that they really do have a plan for winning. He shared some of the strategies for doing that, and I think made a compelling case that this is not a stalemate, this is not a lost cause, but rather a country that is both willing and able to fight and win against a much larger enemy if they just have the tools and the aid to do that. So I think he was compelling in that sense. What I don't know is whether he persuaded anybody who wasn't already supportive. I would say that if there's somebody on the bubble, it was pretty persuasive. I think for people who are supportive, it just hardened that support. But of course, we all know that Ukraine's challenge in the United States Senate is more about our own internal politics, our own internal national security, and the context that this bill takes on, rather than just support for Ukraine.
So, Senator, would you like to see then the bill separated and keep the support for Ukraine to itself and then deal with the border security issues separately?
Well, I would not, and the reason I say that is because we need border security really, really badly. And so far, the White House and the Democrats in the Senate don't want border security. In fact, they seem very comfortable with a wide open border and over 12,000 people coming across illegally every single day. So I think for us, the leverage for Republicans who want to secure our southern border is the Ukraine bill, something that the President and the Democrats seem to want very badly, although I'm not sure that they're willing to negotiate in good faith yet to get that. I would say, though, I think that the assistant says, this bill isn't just about Ukraine and the southern border, it's also about Israel, and it's some of it for our own munitions and stockpiles, which are important, our own, obviously, industrial base, and of course some for Taiwan and the Pacific. In other words, a lot of this really is an American or USA national security package, and it should be billed as such and built as such, but it should be talked about in that same context. And I think that has to include the southern border.
So in your own position then, are you minded now to support this bill, to vote in favour of it?
If we get the type of language and enforcement mechanisms in the bill for our southern border, I can't wait to vote for it. I'd be enthusiastic about voting for it. I'm not willing, however, to give up the leverage to get national security for the United States of America and put America's interests secondary to another country's interests and vote for it without that southern border security piece.
And Senator, do you think that members should sit through Christmas to get that done? I mean, the Biden administration is saying time is running out on the Ukraine element of it, regardless of all the other elements as you've described there.
Yes, but I do think we have to have better negotiators on the Democratic side. And by that I mean I think the President himself has to weigh in. He has to tell his base and tell and by the way, I think half of the Democrats in the United States Senate would gladly vote for border security. It's just that to this point they're captive to a very radical base and to the White House. But if Joe Biden would say, I'm taking over the negotiations now, let's secure our border, here's how we're going to do it, we're going to change asylum laws. And by the way, it doesn't even cost any more money. It's just a change in enforcement and in policy.
And Senator, you're prepared to sit over Christmas to get that done if the President himself gets involved?
No, if the President himself gets involved, we can have it done by tomorrow morning. That's my point.
Okay.
If he doesn't and he allows this to continue, we're going to probably vote on a bill. It probably won't pass, and then we'll go home for Christmas, and hopefully he'll have time to think a little harder about his actions or its inaction, and we can take it up first thing when we get back next year.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Senator Kevin Cramer, Republican from North Dakota, thanks indeed for joining us on BBC News.
Thank you. My pleasure.